Screen time salutations to all you internet dwellers out there, and welcome to another episode of Screen Time Continuum. I am Nick, and I am with the boys. Got Keelan here. What's going on?
Can't complain, can't complain. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you, man. And we got Mike. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Sunday fun day. Better than a Monday.
Better than the Monday. Can only do it one way.
Yep.
And
how you doing up there?
Not too bad, man. Good day. Can't complain. Feeling it. Weekends go by so fast, but it's nice to wrap up the weekends with you guys, so I appreciate it. And tonight we are going to talk about Hail Caesar. So thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We appreciate all of you. And if you like this episode, you like what we do here, please consider giving us a thumbs up on our YouTube channel and a subscription. Hit that subscribe button. Help us out very much. We appreciate all of you. Tonight we're going to talk about, again, Hail Caesar, which is a 2016 Cohen Brothers movie directed by Ethan Cohen and Joel Cohen, written by Ethan Cohen and Joel Cohen. And it's starring Josh Brolin, George Clooney, Alden Ehrenreich. Sorry, weird German. We also have Ray Fiennes, Scarlett Johansson, Tilda Swinton, Channing Tatum, Frances McDormand, Jonah Hill, Veronica Osario, and many, many more. And kind of like a Coen Brothers movie, I can't exactly give you a full rundown of what the plot is about, because most of their movies are kind of just about very mundane situations and scenarios. But the synopsis from IMDb is that a Hollywood fixer in the 1950s works to keep up the studio's stars in line, which is an oversimplification, but Josh Brolin basically plays a producer for Capitol Pictures. And the movie is basically a 27-hour period of his life, basically one day in his life, what he has to deal with, and all of the little tangential characters and situations that attach to Capitol Records. Damn it, I say Capitol Pictures.
It got you.
It got me. But yeah, so I think I can just go to first impressions, because again, I have a hard time explaining the full plot of this movie. So maybe we can flesh it out in the details after we get done with first impressions. So Keelan.
My first impressions of this movie, I remember the trailers and the promotions for it. I was never really interested in it. But first impressions, it was a good watch. Entertaining, funny. Yeah, I'm not sure right now.
Yeah, it sounds like you just watched a Coen Brothers movie. What about you, Mike?
So I initially didn't even know this movie existed. When you like floated it by us, I thought it was just going to be some like Netflix satirical thing about Hollywood. Didn't even know it was Coen's Brothers movie, and that was that's a bit of my fault. Between the years of 2016 and 2019, I was very busy, so like it wasn't even on my radar. But I absolutely love this film. It's like a complete love letter to Hollywood. It reminds me a bit of the 2019 film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Tarantino, within the scope of respect to the film industry.
Yeah.
And all around, like I loved it. Like I love the juxtaposition of themes from, like, you have Maddox, which is Brolin's character. He has like this whole noir thing happening. But then you have like all the other little films going on within the studio within that time. And one of them is like a very dramatic Broadway adaptation, which is great. You have like another musical happening. You have all these little stories and plot threads going on. And the whole time, Brolin is doing his job. He's making sure all the ends kind of meet. And I don't know what it's like working in Hollywood, but I can only imagine that it becomes a chaotic and stressful situation. and that fixer character becomes like the guy. Even at the end of the movie, they say like his future's like written in the sky or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I absolutely love this film.
Nice.
I want to say, with your reference to Once Upon a Time in Mexico,
Hollywood.
I'm sorry, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Those are two different movies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When this came out, and I didn't see this, and then that came out, I actually assumed they were like a part of the same lineage, possibly made by the same people. I didn't do any homework on any of that because I didn't really watch either. But I definitely thought that they were a derivative of one another.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that they were connected in some way.
Yeah. Well, this one definitely focuses on the 40s aspect of Hollywood, much more of the golden era, right after the war. And certainly I do appreciate, like, again, it's going to be hard to go through like specific plot points for me, but I would have to piggyback on what Mike said. I really enjoyed the cinematography of this movie. I think it's just gorgeous. And
it looked great. It sounded great. Like the whole McCarthy era thing with the communists.
I love that.
The second they were like, "This is our study group," and then someone says the Hegelian dialectic, I'm like, "These are communists. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about communists."
The dog's name was what was the dog's name?
Engel,
which is the guy who helped Marx write Das Kapital.
Oh wow! Didn't catch that. That's funny.
They figured out the secret to everything, and it's in this book called Capital
with a K.
With a K. Well, George Clooney did great.
He did
as like
good.
Like the clueless sort of actor, like sort of like just going through Hollywood and like having all this stuff happen to him, and he does like some shady stuff, right? Like he wakes up in somebody else's house. Like he said, he even
just figured he partied too hard.
Yeah, exactly.
It seemed like another night in Hollywood for him.
Right. Yeah. Wake up at some Malibu mansion, and you're like, where the fuck?
Saint Bordeaux or wherever they were saying he goes.
Right.
There's an actor who got I forget who it is, but he got like arrested in somebody else's house.
I think that's happened a few times.
Yeah. Was it Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah, he climbed into somebody's house. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, thinking it was his. So like it's like you have these Hollywood stories too, and then you have Brolin's character who is like, all right, this is what we do, this is what we say, this is the PR front, this is what is actually going to happen, and it's just that sort of problem solving that makes it such an interesting watch. That makes this movie such an interesting watch.
Yeah. In the 50s, it was a person. In 2022, it's a department.
Oh yeah. He's just a one-man department, really.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think.
Well,
I was just gonna add. I think the scene where he busts in on the girl doing the photo shoot. That is the epitome of, the contract and being stuck to the obligation, right? And if you ask me, I think that what they do, I think that's okay. So we're looking at a timepiece, right? So awkwardly enough, he's able to smack her around like that because in those times, that's typically what was happening. People were just putting their hands on each other, apparently, and there wasn't really much repercussion unless you had power.
Well, then when you were an actor back then, you were owned by the studio.
And that's what I was alluding to with the contracts. And with this, that's what I was kind of more so gathering. Just, hey, listen, you owe me this, or this is your job. So this is what you're coming to do. And if you don't do it, then, we're going to let them make you look bad, or we're going to push more dirty stories about you. Yeah. And also the two sides of the media being a twin. That was beautiful.
Oh, I like that too, for sure. That was a nice little bit of illustration. I would be remiss if I let this conversation go on any further without giving a shout out to the narrator, Dumbledore. That was kind of cool.
That was Dumbledore?
That was Dumbledore. Yeah.
Wow.
It's very cool.
Awesome.
That just made me think. Have we even intro what the movie itself is?
Yeah, I did an intro.
Like the Hollywood
on the
fixer
screen
doing
too.
stuff.
It is. Like, I'm thinking I was about to say we should wait like 5 more minutes and be like the movie and just kind of throw things everywhere.
Yeah, I could give like a
intro here.
I'll try to do my elevator pitch here, right? So it's about a 1940s Hollywood producer that's trying to juggle the life of a Hollywood producer, and basically one of his actors gets abducted by communists, and he has to solve this problem amongst a myriad of other problems with other talent. And it's just basically a 27-hour portion of his life. I think I honestly, I enjoy most of what they did here for sure.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I really love the idea of a producer being like this detective, this noir detective who has to figure out what the hell is going on with all of his or her actors and actresses, and kind of like sort out the whole studio in real time as things are going down. And even like put 2 and 2 together, do the detective thing.
Like a manager keeping employees in line.
Right. Yeah.
And even like the facade of the communists, right? So the whole communist thing, that whole subplot starts with the writers being angry that they didn't get their money at the back end. And it's like, dude, you signed those contracts. Like when I was watching, I was like, you signed those contracts. That would be like if I got hired as a programmer in a Hollywood studio and I got mad that I didn't get any money on the back end because I programmed something that helped the movie go along in some way.
Right.
It's silly.
Well, and George Clooney points out the silliness when he says, it seems kind of unfair that you guys won't give me a cut.
The ransom
money.
I participated.
That's unethical. You can't ask for that.
But see, this is why I love it. And I think sometimes like these types of movies can be very too highbrow and a little bit hoity-toity, but I think that the Cohen brothers do that type of thing super, super well, because it doesn't ever feel too pretentious. It's making fun of itself for sure. And I really enjoy that aspect of it. I was also going to say, I really enjoy the aspect of like, to me, some of the scenes were shot like cross sections of cinema. So you would see what would be on the screen, but then you would see what was past the screen and things behind the scenes as well. And then the actor would work his way through that whole scene. I just thought that was so cool because it's like, you're seeing what the audience would see, but also what the movie wants to show you, which is behind the scenes, but not behind the scenes, Yeah.
Like one of my favorite parts is you have George Clooney near the end going through that whole speech, right? The whole they've set this up as the emotional pinnacle of the film,
right?
So it has to be George Clooney giving the speech, or his character giving the speech, because he's also playing an actor. He's a dude playing another dude,
another dude, right?
And he's giving the speech, and then he gets to the very end, and then he forgets the line.
Forgets the
last line. And that seems like such a Hollywood moment if there's not any. And it's making fun of itself within like the way that it's cut, the way the cinematography, it builds on the emotionality of that whole final segment. And then when he forgets it, it brings you back down to this earth of like, Hollywood's might be filled with a bunch of fuck ups that forget the last line of a big emotional
300 takes, man.
Yeah.
Right.
500 minutes versus 5.
But it's like Cohen's brothers like making fun of itself.
Definitely.
So good.
Well, a couple of points that I wanted to bring up, and I kind of did them sequentially, but we can go through stuff you guys wanted to talk about too. But one of the first notable points I have here is the conversation at the table with all of the faith leaders. I thought that was one of the funniest. I thought that was hilarious. I really did. I was like, wow, this is so well done. It almost felt like a mini play within the movie. Yeah. And where they're all just talking about the essence of God. And it's like, you know, the Jewish guy's like just shaking his head. He's like, these guys got it all wrong, you know.
God hates everybody.
He
loves the Jews.
We just want to make sure that we understand that Jesus is not God. Yes, we agree with that. We like what? Like wait, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah, the Nazarene is not the Messiah.
It's not the Messiah.
And you like from like a film watcher's point of view, like you almost expect that to be a setup for some sort of payoff later on.
Right.
But it doesn't go anywhere. That whole conversation ends right there.
Right.
Yeah, I expected it to turn into some large debate, be a bit clusterfuck, but there wasn't. It was nice, clean cut. It was in that moment, and they moved on.
Yeah, because that moment was just him focus grouping the religious leaders to make sure his movie wasn't going to offend anybody.
Right.
Like that was it.
Yeah. Right. And so I like how this movie did that. It jumped around kind of, but it was able to tie things together. So like the Hobie character, from beginning to end of the way his character played out, you start off with just watching him in that little rodeo scene. Eventually we see that movie or the other side of that movie, not just that scene, but we see him in like what his character actually was, which he was kind of the romantic lead, the good looking guy kind of feel.
Yeah, right? He ends up kind of being a protagonist at the end too.
At the end, you know?
Which I thought that actor did such a great job just portraying like the sort of like freshness to Hollywood. Like he was groomed into it. Yeah, he was just a spaghetti Western kid that didn't have the chops. And that scene where he has to film his first scene in like Hollywood, that's like it's so good. It's with Ray Fiennes.
Like the cringe, like I had to leave my living room because the cringe got to the point where I was like, I feel so bad for this guy. I gotta leave.
He was even walking like he just got off a horse. Like he was waddling over to the seat.
Like he's in the Western.
Hey, look, when you shoot outside, you don't realize how many people are watching you. And so what I love about
it were so simple.
But it's I don't even know if I can mess it up.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah. It just ends up changing the line entirely.
Right. And so the full circle of that, not just the whole difficulty and cringiness of that 3 minutes. That came full circle when we get later to not watching him per se again, but watching that scene fully played out as Eddie is watching it with the, what would we call that lady? The real monitor?
Yeah.
She's like probably technician. She might be like an assistant editor or something like that.
There we go. An editor. That'd be the proper term.
Well, and you could see the final product after the editing. He looked like a movie star.
Yeah, it was smooth.
It was much smoother than the first, like.
But even how they
no, go for it, Keelan. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. How they use the consistency of him messing up. I'm trying to find the right words for it. Just how regularly they had to stop and start. And even when they go to the final product, they use that as the perfect time to insert another joke, just another moment, which in my opinion was probably the funniest moment. Like I really had to pause, get up and walk out because I was laughing so hard.
With Francis McDermott?
Yes.
And the scarf.
It's like
I gotta stop wearing scarves.
You see it at first, and then you see it's like, wait, what is going on? Reverse.
So her for the listeners that haven't seen the movie, her scarf gets caught within the real machine itself.
That is hilarious.
So then she gets pulled into it, and it's starting to choke her to death. Yeah. So Brolin's character, the producer, to switch it into reverse. And I love her reaction. Like she flies back, and then the very first thing she does, she takes a drag from the cigarette.
Doesn't drop the cigarette once.
Gotta get that oxygen up, man.
Yeah. That was a very quick.
We should stop wearing scarves.
Well, that was such a very quick, little vignette of a scene too, and I think that's why I like Cohen Brothers, because they tend to piece their movies in vignettes, and so it kind of makes it fun because it feels like you're watching you know, like, because a lot of times in movies, like the set pieces transitionally are as fluid as possible to kind of continue the story in a very linear way. But I do kind of like the vignette model because it lets you kind of piece together the story not exactly as linearly as I guess it would if everything transitioned more smoothly.
Gotta do a little bit of work.
Would you say then that it becomes like a modular movie?
Yeah, kind of a modular movie that then you put all the pieces together creates the bigger story. A little bit less on the rails, I guess.
I gotcha. It makes me wonder though, like you get all these little one-off scenes, you get these little one-off jokes. Like the other one that stuck out to me was, who is it that's going on and on about Hollywood? George Clooney's character. He's going on and on about Hollywood, and he's like something about the spiritual aspect of Hollywood. He's like, we might think that we interact on some spiritual realm with Hollywood, and he keeps going on and like he goes. It makes me wonder if those are like inside jokes within that industry, because it only happens at one time. And you get like the editor, I'm just gonna call her an assistant editor. I don't know if she actually is, but you get the scarf joke. You get that whole gag thing happening, and it makes me wonder if all those little one-off gags are just inside jokes for Hollywood.
I think they probably are, because a lot of Cohen brothers, they do like to kind of make those inside jokes a lot. And, you know, they've worked with heavy hitters for a long time. I mean, Clooney's in almost every one of their movies. And, you know, they always have Frances McDormand. They always have, I mean, your Ray Fiennes is new, but Tilda Swinton isn't. You know, like they always have a very good, solid cast with all of their movies. So, yeah. I did like the communists, though. That was so funny.
I think it was a great way to implement that.
What's even greater is that they actually used real communists. So Herbert Marcuse, which is the old guy, was one of the first introducers of neo-Marxism into like the West.
Oh, wow. I would punch that guy in the face.
Right? Yeah. When they said his name, I was like, "Oh, I know that guy." I've read Repressive. Like he has something called Repressive Tolerance. That's one of his famous essays. Yeah.
Jeez.
Even
I'm sitting here like I needed to do way more research on this movie and the players in it.
Oh, there's deep cuts for sure.
Even the directors become deep cuts, like Lawrence or Lawrence. That's a name in my mind. And even the other director that they had, I linked it back to Cecil. I linked it back to Cecil B. DeMille, but I don't think it's that. But that's where my mind jumped to. But it could be a play on words with that. But I did not. I was ignorant within my research to this movie, obviously, because I came in not knowing anything, and it's been maybe a little bit too long since I've studied my film history.
Are you talking
they
about
even say,
that character. I feel like it was a little bit maybe like a callback to Cecil B. DeMille, which probably I think came way before that. But that's where my mind jumped to, and it could just be like dyslexia and a bunch of other shit working. Yeah. But I definitely have to do that research.
No, I'm not too sure. Sorry about that, Nick. But really quick, I'm not too sure about the Cecil B. DeMille connection of that character, but the correlation of them being married to someone in a foreign country that Hollywood didn't know about, and getting the other celebrity pregnant, and then they have them going and finding love somewhere else. It lent the ticket, for me at least, to something that I talk about often, which is staged relationships. Like some people say they don't exist, but I think the majority.
Scarlett Johansson's character is a testament to that. Yeah,
right.
No.
Yeah,
no, exactly. Allowed to have a kid and not be married.
And in real life, that was a huge thing within the 40s. I'm sure it's still a thing now, but in the 40s and 50s, it was even bigger. I mean, you had there's an actor who was gay who ended up marrying, like, because of the studio forced pressure on him.
Oh, plenty.
He married somebody and built a whole family.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure.
Because that had to look proper within everybody's eyes. So you have the studio putting that pressure through all the time.
Yeah, I've heard a few of those stories. Not even having to mention names. I've heard a couple of those stories.
Yeah.
And some of them, yes, in today's Hollywood. So
yeah.
That stuff, I'm sure those arranged marriages still happen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What I will say though too also is Scarlett Johansson's scene was incredibly shot.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that whole scene, the way it was shot with the synchronized swimmers and like the toy, or the toy whale and all of that. Like I thought that was really well done.
I'm starting to think 2021 and 2022 are really winning you over with Scarlett Johansson.
Well, I've seen her in smaller movies. I like her in smaller movies. Yeah.
Oh, have you seen, what is it, The Marriage? Or what is that?
No, Marriage Story. Too heavy for me.
Okay.
We saw her in Jojo Rabbit, and she was really good in that.
Sorry. Okay, that's
I was sitting here like, wow, that's a deep jump, bro. The Marriage Story.
Yeah, man. But that whole synchronized swimming thing harkens back to The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, big time.
Which is a Cohen Brothers movie. Yeah. And it's shot very similarly. Like it's that has that same flavor to it, which is cool.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice little callback.
Talk about Jonah Hill.
Yeah, I like this
character. Is the guy.
He's the guy
in
basically
the background.
The crisis actor guy.
Yeah, that nobody notices, but he's the professional person. Yes. Whenever, like, he did 6 months in jail for the studio.
Yeah. But he didn't really do 6 months, just on paper.
I love how Josh Brolin's dude explains it too. He's like, if the studio ever falls on a situation in which personhood needs to be applied, then Mr. Silver
comes in.
Whatever his name is,
is
the person.
Hi, my name's Joe.
I'm bonded.
Right.
Yeah, I'm bonded.
I won't say anything.
And then like she's like Scarlett Johansson's hitting on him. Yeah. And like that's a great scene too, because it's shot real. You see you can see her hitting on him and you see him just focused on his work. And finally when he realized what's going on, he's like he takes it all in. He actually does take it all in, and the opportunity he has to interact with this actress.
Yeah.
And instead he goes, ma'am, it's just a part of the job.
Right.
Which even is a like
he's a professional.
Yeah, Jonah Hill has so little screen time, but he is a damn. Yeah, you get the full feel out of his character, which is so important. And the way that the Cohen brothers were able to do that in such a short time is just a testament of their filmmaking ability.
Yeah, it's good storytelling. It's good storytelling when you're able to flavor a character within 3 minutes. And you know that like you would, when you can tell a future decision or you can predict a future decision about a character within that short of amount of time, you know that you've actually like really conveyed the character to the audience for sure. Because I could tell you exactly what his decisions are going to be when in the marriage. You know what I mean? Like,
how he's going to do it. Yes, honey. No, honey.
Yeah. But then again, is the question: did he become married to the girl because the studio told him to be?
Maybe
because he is the studio guy.
That is what they told him.
I mean, it might have been just a win-win because Scarlett did seem to be into him. So
yeah, because that wasn't the plan for them to get married,
right?
Do you guys think that the Hobie character, the guy in real life, really knew how to do those rope tricks?
It looked pretty convincing.
I thought it looked really authentic.
Yeah, it didn't look like they used a stunt double, but I couldn't tell.
I think though that's like a like another inside nod to all the weird shit that actors and actresses have to learn, and their ability to pick it up on the movie,
like a comic having a juggling ability. Yeah,
and they just carry it out for the rest of their life. Like even when he has the spaghetti, he's like, "Yeah, I just don't get it with meat sauce anymore." So I could do all this with the spaghetti.
Yeah. And that was a good small vignette too, man. I really enjoyed that scene where they're just sitting there having fun, you know. Like he actually is, you know, like he and the character, I forget the actor's name real quick.
Hobart. Real life.
Yeah, Alden Ehrenreich. I think he did a really good job at like mixing that like country fish out of water guy with this also very astute because he was very perceptive when he talks to Josh Brolin about who kidnaps
What's
the
going
people.
on? Yeah.
He's like, I'd look at the extras automatically. So you can tell that he's smart and he's perceptive about stuff too.
But what does that say about Hollywood as a whole? Like, where it seems like nobody trusts each other.
Right.
Like everybody's always looking out for somebody else. Like, are you that guy off the street that I can't trust?
Right.
Yeah.
The extra,
I mean, that's what happens when you're sharks. The sharks in the water. All they do is smell blood. They don't really look and see where it's coming from.
Yeah. But at the same time, he's inept to change his accent when he's in like a dramatic role. Like when he walks in that door and he's like you said, like he's still walking like he just got off the horse.
Right.
And he throws in his like Western twang.
He can't stop jimming the camera.
Yeah.
He keeps jimming the camera just like straight into the camera.
It's so good.
That shit was so funny.
It was good though. But I think so. Here's the thing for me. I think the only part of this movie that I really wanted more out of was the Lockheed situation.
Yeah.
That Lockheed contract. I honestly, I would have liked to see him take the contract, say like on a temporary basis, and dare I say it, for 2 movies in a row, I take another 30 minutes of this movie just to see that played out.
But he wanted to be king of the circus.
He definitely wanted to be king of the circus.
He was comfortable with that. You know, like
you know, I think something goes to prove, especially when it comes to Hollywood or the entertainment industry, people who thrive in chaos thrive in this industry, or thrive, you know, when they're in or around the industry, even if it's not really their passion. You thrive in the chaos, you can make a way.
Oh, and you can tell by the character too, Josh Brolin's character. When he was at work, he was his most on.
Oh yeah,
know?
I think
he was very subdued at home with his wife.
Yeah, I think 20 years before, where we see him, he was like the guy who, you know, Jimmy Two Legs. He breaks legs. You don't pay your tap on time.
Yeah, he might be connected to a couple people in New York, since he has to make that New York crawl every day.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, no, I liked his character because he was such a square, and I like that he was such a square because, you know, like he would go to confession every day. And he'd be like, it's been 24 hours since my last confession. I snuck a couple cigarettes. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
you're a better person than again.
Did anyone else?
The priest is like, I think you're coming here too much.
Did anyone else catch who the priest was? That the priest was one of the communists?
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's the guy that was making the sandwiches with the glasses and the beard.
Oh, really? That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. I apologize for that.
That's
the listeners, anyone who had the big doom just now. But yeah, no, for sure. The facial silhouette was the exact same.
I wouldn't put it past them to have that sort of like complete the loop as well, which makes sense for sure.
Oh, that makes sense. But yeah, no, his character just always going to that confessional. Like I like, part of a joke, I wanted to sit here and been like when you asked me first impressions, I wanted to be like, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned.
Right.
It's been 30 years since my last confession.
Right.
It's been 27 hours. It's been 24 hours.
24,
but
that
ties the whole film together, though, which is kind of cool, because it ties it on the whole notion of Jesus and who is it that takes up the sins for everybody else. And within the movie, it's Brolin's character. Yeah. He takes up everybody's sins and then spins everything else in proper ways so that nobody gets hurt.
Right.
He has the job that he wants. He is the ringmaster.
Yeah. And he could have chosen the Lockheed job, which was cushy and safe.
Like,
and you know, to be
knowing
honest,
what we know today,
right? Yeah, being at the ground floor of Lockheed in the 40s might be really lucrative, but
it's weird to think that like Lockheed tries to scalp talent from Hollywood. Do you think that's still like, if that's a real thing? Do you think that still happens?
Yeah. I think it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure it does.
It goes back to the chaos thing.
And managing, like I don't see any real difference from managing like a Hollywood production to managing like a military thing.
Hollywood's harder, I'm sure.
I mean, it's just if you know how to manage large scales of people and multiple projects, that's going to translate across so many things.
You have to think about like
Right.
so
he'd
like
be a
there's
project manager.
times when Brolin calls up the dailies and he's looking at them. So like there's this thing of like a crunch time, right? So there's that whole notion that gets introduced in the film. So I imagine that between crunch times in Hollywood and crunch times at Lockheed, that there's some sort of parallel there where they see the skills can work. Where it's like we have a review in a week with the general at Lockheed, or generals come down to Lockheed. We gotta get this done,
right?
And then you just go to Brolin's character to get it done.
Yeah.
Just like we have a review with the studio heads within a week or within tomorrow, and we have to get this cut done, or we have to get the dailies into the what is it called? I think it's like a sequence or something within the sequence or something like that to just get everything rolling,
It's still in the realm of production, right? So it's like whether you're producing a film or you're producing an aircraft, like you're still, if you're in that management level, like how to engage teams, how to deploy people, how to delegate stuff. So
keep the parts moving.
It would make sense that
keep all the cogs oiled properly.
Yeah, and you're in charge of millions of dollars. That's another thing. It's like, oh yeah, how to run a budget. How to like handle vast amounts of money.
Could you imagine being a part of a $1 billion or like $1 trillion project where like it's like it falls on you for some sort of responsibility? That's fucking insane.
Yeah, big time.
Right. I would assume if you're in charge of $1 billion project, probably 2 of those you can retire. The problem is the contract you sign is going to be 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, a lot of commitment for sure.
Unless you're the writers, then you maybe got like a 2-year contract, you don't see any of it, and then you become a bunch of fucking asshole communists.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's okay. So I'll say that's the one I'll say moral issue. Like from a moral stance, if you're doing all of this, the theory is men take these hard, taxing, stressful jobs to take care of their family. If you're doing all this to take care of your family, why not take the easy, cushy job that allows you to be at home more?
Because he loves the kingdom he's running.
Crackheads love crack. That doesn't mean you give them crack.
But it was
he's a creature of the system that he's in.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
It was so I gotta be really careful with the words I use here. I'm just gonna say endearing. It was very cute when he asked his wife. Like he does the thing of asked his wife of like, well, what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
And literally when he does that, he's leaving his wife in charge
of the decision.
Yeah, of 2 companies, $1 million or $1 billion projects at that time.
Right.
And you know what she does? What every other wife does. You know best, honey. No, you make the decision.
And that's so endearing though, because I can definitely see a point where you need to be home more. You need to be at the 9 to 5 because that's the best for our family.
Well, he's got that silent generation, straight-laced work ethic, right? Where it's just like, be gone all day, have dinner with your wife and your kid, go to bed.
Eat your roast at 11 p.m.
Eat your roast, and then that's it.
You never know.
What's that?
You may need to go back to the office.
Oh yes, of course, of course. Yeah. Sometimes you don't get to go to bed.
So you want whiskey instead of your milk.
Yeah. He laments on like not going to his kid's baseball game, not knowing that his daughter so he laments on not going to his son's baseball game and not knowing that his daughter passed the Spanish test.
Right.
But,
the drug of Hollywood.
Yeah, but he's still a caring father because he knows that they were both stressful situations.
Right.
Well, that's where I believe it's an addiction thing. It's a drug thing. Being in that level of power, I think for him going to Lockheed, even though Lockheed is what it is today, at the time Lockheed was Nike in the 70s, right? Ooh, who cares? And you just don't know. So at the time, Capital Capital Pictures. I did it to them. Yeah, but Capital Pictures, they clearly were the big dogs. Everybody was looking to them, asking them, lending them their actors to make sure that things got done. So again, I think it lends back to a power thing for Eddie.
Well, it's just he's good at it.
I mean,
he wants to, but that's the thing is like that's what I mean about this very stoic, silent generation. Work your nose into the ground until you're 65, then retire. Like that's the thing. He's a company man. So like his domain is what he's good at. He's a good producer. He's good at putting out the fires and doing all that stuff. So, and Andy's also middle-aged, so he's facing that like, do I go step into the great unknown when I got something that I'm valued at, I'm valuable in?
Know that feeling.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I can relate to that. Like he's good at what he does, and so why leave it?
And I think what's cool is that all of this conflict ends up taking the same amount of screen time as all the other conflicts. Yeah. So like his own personal conflict,
very little most of the time.
Yeah, ends up being all the same as the film's conflict, all the like the various film projects that they're working on within the studio. And it just shows that like when you're in that fixer role, you got to keep moving. You don't have a lot of you got to pick up the information necessary, make the decision you need to do within that moment.
Yeah,
even if that moment is just 1 or 2 seconds,
right?
And you keep rolling.
Yeah, I do love that as well. That 1 or 2 seconds of appreciation that was thrown his way helped pave the way to his reciprocation of someone else in the moment, like literally in the moment. Thora, for instance, receiving the flowers from Deanne, literally receiving those flowers, walking out, being accosted by Thora, explaining the situation, and being able to give her the flowers in the moment.
And then he's like, I gotta go do something important.
Right. Right. And it's like those small gratifications, those moments that make you feel like it's worth it. And that's where I do understand, like you were saying, Nick, he's good at the job. I was simply alluding to if your family, we say we sacrifice for family, but we won't sacrifice our joys.
But that's again a part of that silent generation work ethic. Where
I agree with you.
It's a man's job to go be out of the house for 12 hours a day. Like that's what you do. You don't go. What are you doing going home early?
Or smack around other people's wives. Don't smack your wife around. Right. That's right.
But yeah, I mean, just a different time, different sort of mentality about stuff about work. But. Oh yeah. Well, we're totally neglecting Channing Tatum here.
Oh god,
I feel like that's kind of wrong.
He's a damn commie. We don't have to talk about him at all.
He's a damn commie.
Bert Gurney, the gymnast communist.
I really like that scene too, man. The sailor scene. It was so hokey. It was hilarious. Yeah. It was very. It was very
won't be any of that in here.
It was a little bit pause in some of that. Yeah.
Wait, are we talking about when the money floats down?
Oh no. He's
just the sailing.
The musical bit.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Now when the money goes down, that's hilarious. He's like, take care of the dog, and he runs and he does his what would we call that? A
superhero jump.
Leap of faith.
Yeah.
Right. He gets up there, he gets tossed the money, catches the money with one hand, no problem. I mean, 2 hands, no problem. Just stands perfectly fine, Then they throw the dog, and I was like, "Oh, this is which one's going down, the dog or the money?" I knew it was happening. I knew it was happening immediately. I was like, "What's going down, the dog or the money?" And that was hilarious.
Which is another little jab at communism, right? And it's like the money just might as well throw it at the bottom of the ocean anyway.
I like how the writers never jumped. Nobody from like the writing team that was on the other boat jumped in. They're just like, oh no. Yeah.
Bad.
Showing that they had plenty of money.
Yeah. Of course.
Even the narration a few scenes back when they're talking about the struggle of the communist writers. They're in like this really fancy house in Malibu, and they're like trying to figure out where the last piece of the puzzle fits, and they're getting their glove, like their Michael Jackson glove or something.
Yeah.
Westerly Malibu.
Eating finger sandwiches.
With no crust.
Yeah, with no crust.
It means you could dispose of the crust. What's happening with all the crust? That bothered me. I was like, what are they doing all that crust? That's like,
it's funny too that the communists have a Hispanic house cleaner.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that they pay every day.
Right.
So so the whole in the beginning of the movie, I'm sitting there, I'm taking it as a satire, and I'm enjoying it. And the second that George Clooney wakes up and walks out and finds the Mexican house cleaner, I'm like, all right, we hit a shift in tone here. This has definitely changed all of a sudden.
Right.
What's going on here?
What the hell am I getting into?
He kept sitting on his sword. That was really good too.
It was like, take it off.
Right.
Dude.
But even as just a metaphor, if you sit on your sword, or it's like a thing where you kill yourself,
right. It's also a term for maybe gentleman on gentleman activities, which he was accused of.
That's
they tried to. Yeah, well, they were trying to blackmail him with that, right?
Are you talking about sodomy?
Eagles on wings.
That's a bunch of commie bullshit.
That is a whole bunch of commie bullshit right there.
Don't make me tell anybody about eagles on wings. He's like,
right.
Like, come again? What are we talking about here?
Which touches upon the homosexuality within Hollywood too, right? It's playing on those jokes that end up being spun by the fixer into communist propaganda,
anti-communist propaganda,
which is perfect for the time and age, right?
Yeah,
you can't have homosexual news out at that time, but if you spin it within a communist light, nobody believes it.
Yeah. They couldn't help themselves. They were tricked by the communists.
Or all the communists just bullshitting, right?
I love the Russian submarine too. It was so ridiculous. It was like
just out there. He's like
just popping up Malibu, just a little
yeah, with a giant red star on it.
So here's
nobody notices that.
I don't know if that was done with CGI or miniatures. There's certain shots sinking where it feels like a miniature.
It looks like it is.
I thought it was done in a mini pool of sorts.
Yeah.
Well, that's the old Hollywood technique of doing things before CGI. It's one of the old, a nod to old Hollywood, which this whole movie again is just a love letter to Hollywood.
And all the cinematography, all the camera tricks, all of that stuff. Yeah.
What studio did this?
It's a good question. It's the Cohen Brothers studio, I think. Or that's their movie house. Never mind. It's Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. Okay.
Yeah. Even when you have
it wasn't shot on Water Road then.
No.
When you have Brolin's character and the one of the sides of the media, one of the twins of the media, they're walking through the studio and they're talking, and it's this I don't even know what to call it. I should know this name, but it's like a reverse dolly, so they're going backwards. And they turn the corner, and as they turn the corner, the actress cuts in. Now, typically, what you could do is you could take the camera and they move it, but instead they let the actors move within the camera, which is a pretty cool thing to see. I enjoyed it. It was one of the little things that I enjoyed, and there's some little things that I really liked too.
Yeah, I think that if you're super into the technicalities of filmmaking, you would really like this movie too, because it definitely I'm a layman to that stuff, but I could definitely tell that they were using different camera techniques and different practical effects and stuff like that. So it was really nice to see, and so heavy on CG most of the times. It's fun to see just practical effects, even that robotic whale that that swallowed Scarlett Johansson. You don't need it to look like a regular whale, because especially you're in this sort of context of being in the 1940s. There's no CGI. Just throw that out. Don't even
or even the intentional bad lighting on Clooney.
Right.
That I don't know why that just jumped out to me. I was like, why is the lighting on him so bad? And it was like, wait.
Well, he had that like
Intentional.
glow about him all the time.
Yeah, but that was mostly like makeup.
Oh yeah, well yeah, lots of bronzer.
It was supposed to be like the epic,
A little bit
like
of
like
Yes,
the whole like
Ben-Hur.
He looked very much like J-Lo
yeah.
in the skin.
Mm.
Oh, you mean not in the figure?
Hey,
No.
I want to know what you were looking for over there. All right.
Hey man, I'm just looking. All right.
There you go.
No, but yeah, no, it's supposed to be like that Ben-Hur epic sort of feel, which all hail Caesar, yeah, or hail Caesar. Sorry, not all hail Caesar. So it brings in some of those filming techniques, which were not really perfect, or like had things to be missed. Even if you watch the old epics, you'll find things that you don't like.
Yeah.
That goes from like Ben-Hur,
Spartacus
to what's the they're in a desert.
Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia, thank you. All of that you'll find little imperfections.
Yeah.
And this movie brings out those imperfections of the filmmaking at that time, which is a great thing to see.
It was the characters, it was the quality, because it was the imperfection sometimes that did bring that qualia to film. I mean, that's why sometimes we prefer practical effects when they can manage them, because we know it's fake, but that's okay. I looked at when I was looking at the Death Star, I didn't think it was real. I don't care.
What? I thought it was real.
It looks awesome.
I took my telescope out and was like,
right.
And that was also like it's the same thing with art, like in art history, certain things that delineate different periods of art. Like when you go and see the Great Train Robbery, a movie that came out in like the 20s, 30s, and you compare that to like Metropolis, and then like the 40s, and you compare that to Ben-Hur, and then you compare that to Star Wars, and you compare that to just films that come later and later in time, you can start to separate the periods of filmmaking and appreciate it.
Big time. Yeah. I like, for sure. I think this is a great movie to just kind of like soak in the sort of glamour of the golden era of Hollywood. And I think it does that really well. And to be honest, I think it's a great, like you said, it is a love letter to Hollywood, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it's fantastic.
Even like Scarlett Johansson's character is like the femme fatale within a noir aspect. And then in another aspect, she's just a person who's like, I end up marrying a bunch of louses. Like, why the fuck should I go marry somebody else? Well, the studio really wants you to marry someone else because you can't have a kid and be unmarried.
Right.
Like a dame with an attitude and a kid.
Yeah, like all that stuff creates like these nice little moments within this film.
Yeah, and it's those little see, this is the thing, is like we've seen so many bad movies doing this show, and sometimes we may come off as critical to certain movies because of movies like this.
Yeah,
and
we have something to compare them to.
Yeah, and it's because you don't know. Scarlett Johansson was on screen for maybe 5 to 6 minutes of this movie, but she had a full character. Just like Jonah Hill, one scene is all you needed to know, and it was the way it was shot, the way the cinematography pointed the camera at him the entire time. Like, you could tell what they were doing with this character. And so storytelling, especially in movies, is so much more about how the camera tells the story and not necessarily about how you need to like drill in the message. Those subtle ways of storytelling can be so much more economical and help you create a story without having to over expound or exposition or whatever. Like, let the camera do the talking.
And it's great too, like in that short time you really showcase the actor and actress's ability to act. Right? Like you take this movie with Scarlett Johansson, you compare that to Black Widow.
She's better in this.
Yeah,
Please don't compare this to Black Widow.
right. And in
I
Black
think it does this a disservice to even put them in the same sentence.
Right.
Yeah, like here's the thing. Like I think it's a disservice to put the 2012 Avengers in respect to Scarlett Johansson to Black Widow.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in the 2012 Avengers, she does so well at portraying Black Widow, and then you compare it to the movie that the titular character, it's fucking awful. But in this
Yeah.
you see her acting abilities, and it's so good to like. It's so refreshing to see that within a condensed amount of time. And the same thing with John Hill.
Yes, I'm all for time economy. Like that's why I like haikus, right? It's like convey as much information as you can with as few words as possible. And that's how you do it with, camera techniques. You do it with lighting. I mean, I remember in middle school, we did a whole, module on Citizen Kane, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
just the camera techniques and the way things were lit and how it tells a story subconsciously to you without you having to be told the story. Everything you're seeing is telling the story.
Mhm.
I really love when films pay attention to those
To
details.
those things. And you said you did that in junior high school?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was like 8th grade drama class because you have to take a performance art or something. So
yeah, I think we did that similar thing. I guess maybe a little more complex, maybe less. In 10th grade.
yeah,
So that's why I'm like, wow, junior high, like
it's all around the same areas. I mean, it was like 2 years from 10th grade. So
Yeah, look, man, I never had to take a drama class. I don't know what the hell all of y'all talking about.
oh man, you should go take a collegiate theater class right now and see how much Shakespeare they still make you read.
No, man. No.
That's the whole damn seat.
Hey, look, I'm a software engineer. I know absolutely nothing about acting or Shakespeare.
Oh man, that was great right there. Look, who are you auditioning for? Who are you auditioning?
There you go.
Tick, boom. That's what I'm on.
Yes, nice.
Hey, there you go. That's a start.
Yeah. But no, man, this movie I can't like praise it enough. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. To be honest, it was a pleasant surprise. I'm glad that I waited so long to watch it. To be honest, because it's nice to have this conversation with you guys. Because I mean, I remember seeing it for years and years, and I'm like, I'll get around to it someday.
You know
and
what it was for
me. I love all the Cohen Brothers movies, so it's like, yeah.
But how much do you love George Clooney?
I mean, he's not the best parts of Cohen Brothers movies, although he's great in Brother Where Art Thou and Men Who Stare at Goats. I
love that movie.
Men Who Stare at Goats is one of my favorites of all time.
But I think just in general, when I was introduced to this movie, I was introduced to it as a George Clooney movie.
Yeah, he's not that much in it. Yeah.
Right. And almost had a bad spill. What I was considering was this is supposed to be a comedy. How funny is George Clooney?
Right. And he's good in Coen Brothers comedy because he's also in because Oh Brother Where Art Thou and Men Who Stare at Goats are both kind of comedies.
Yeah, but he's not relied on for the comedy.
Right. Yeah.
If anything, he is the relief to the comedy that is going on.
Yeah, he's kind of anti-comedy. I mean, that's why he works with the communists, because the communists are so ridiculous and kind of silly, and he's like earnestly talking to them and like kind of being won over by the ideas and stuff. And then you get the final scene with him and Josh Brolin. He just slaps the shit out of him over and over again.
So, do you think he's playing himself within this time period, or he's playing like a satirical version of himself?
I think maybe like a over exaggerated version of himself in some ways, because he is the big huge movie star, so relating to that might not be that difficult for him.
No.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's some parts he could pull from his real life, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I imagine there have been some crazy ideas that he's wandered into.
And I wouldn't be surprised if George Clooney woke up in some random person's house without knowing where he was. I mean,
Hey, maybe in the ER days.
He was a bachelor until his 50s. So,
like, if I've done that, I'm sure he's done that. Right.
Who knows? He probably woke up in that exact house they shot the film in.
You know what we're going to do? This house. Why? I've woken up here.
I've been here before. It was it was the rap party for Ocean's 11.
And I like how all those little like offbeat communist stuff all takes place in Malibu.
Yeah.
It all takes place in Malibu.
The richest place in LA County.
You got to be comfortable, man. You got to do stuff like that at home.
That's right.
Would you think they were going to come down to West LA?
Yeah.
Right.
Of course not.
But some of those studio, at least in the beginning, some of that studio stuff was shot on the Sony lot.
It kind of looked like it. Yeah.
So like I went to prom on the Sony lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Nice.
so I got, obviously got to explore and all that shit. And like I'm like, yeah, that's Sony. That's so cool that they were able to use it as like a 40s film set.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, because a lot of the lot still looks like that anyways.
Right.
So, yeah, guys, do you have
Numbers
any
on the doors, all that crap.
Yeah. Do you guys want to do any final thoughts before we get to ratings? Anything else you wanted to add? I mean, we could gush about this movie more if you like, but this does.
It's a good one. It's pretty decent.
But this does negate the theory that we do not talk about movies we like. So,
we've been getting away from that as of recent. I think we said it enough to where we wanted to prove ourselves wrong.
Right.
I think I hit all of my hot points. It's weird that for me, one of the hot points, I was hoping one of you also caught that the communist was the was the communist. I really expected that to be a bigger,
it was good. That's good though, especially since Marx's take on religion and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does tie you typically want to get your communists into the aesthetic class, right?
Right.
To kill the religion.
Infiltration. Yeah,
which makes sense. And
infiltration is the way to subjugate.
Or like Marcuse said, the long march through the institutions, which is
and like they were showing that stuff when they were like, we're introducing communist ideas into film.
Yeah,
slowly, or they had different ones, but like slowly. But we're doing it, of course.
I think he said sub rasa, which is under the table.
This is our study group. Our
yeah, I do like the way we're in a study group.
Yeah, we talk about philosophy, economics, history,
and economics, which are one and the same if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Hegel. You can go fuck off.
I know, right? I love that. But it's so good for like people who actually like pay attention to that kind of stuff. Because if you don't know anything about like the McCarthyism and sort of the rise of communism in America, you just be like, oh, they're just poking fun at commies. I don't get it. Like, no, those people were real. That was based on a real person, and like that stuff really exists.
Yeah, I didn't know that the particular people were real. So that part.
Well, certainly the old man was based on a real communist. So.
And I'm starting to think that communism as a whole is just the worst parts of intellectualizing anything.
Yeah.
And that just ends up that's like the shithole of intellect.
What's the deepest extreme?
Yeah. Well, even Marx said itself, and he's like the people within that sort of aesthetic class, they're called the superstructure, and then you have the base, which is making all of the stuff. Superstructure just talks about ideas, and they're kind of contributing nothing to society, but that's where most of the Marxists and communists are. So, like
that's where the boss controls the means of production.
Yes,
parasite.
It's the best.
Shut up.
The body of the politic.
The body of the politic. I love it.
I always like his characters, and he always has like the most spot on characters. To be the guy off in the shadows and still be the exact same guy in this movie as well, just great.
Mm-hmm.
That's the like, I think that's like a directorial thing where like you have your favorite set of friends and you always put them in your movies, but they're always off here and off there. And for the Cohen Brothers, he's that guy.
Yeah, Adam Sandler does that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're good with final thoughts. You ready for ratings?
Good to go.
Good to go. All right, who wants to go first?
I went first last week.
All right, I'll go first then. That's no problem. So again, this was a cold pick. I had not seen it before. I hadn't even seen a trailer before. I knew loosely that it was a Cohen Brothers movie and that George Clooney was in it. So I was pleasantly surprised by watching this movie. It's a subtle film. So if you're not accustomed to the way Cohen Brothers make movies and kind of how they are a little bit anticlimactic, then you might have an issue with it. But if you enjoy cinema, if you enjoy the golden era of Hollywood, if you enjoy, the different technicalities of movie making, I mean, this movie is awesome. It's great. The acting is fantastic. The story is good. It is a little bit desperate. I feel like the Channing Tatum thing was a little bit tacked on, because I don't know if there was, maybe I missed it, but I don't know, was there any hint to him being a commie before he jumps on the submarine?
Everything's from the point of view of Brolin's character, though.
Right. Yeah.
So he would not know that he's
he
a
wouldn't
commie.
know. Right.
He may know if he saw him slip the like the where the future thing.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't know.
Yeah. Okay. So so that's just a little bit of, like you have to kind of let that be a payoff in and of itself. But that's the sort of anticlimacticness that I talk about with the Coen brothers. They're very good at that. Like, they're good about resolving a kind of like a story without you noticing that they resolved it.
May I interject real quick?
Yeah.
So the only Channing Tatum's character salutes within his little like Marine dance thing, implying that he's the most American out of everyone. But he's actually the communist, and within the era, that was a big thing. And maybe that's the hint.
I think it could be. It's a little bit of a stretch, but
like
it does
the ugly
make
Americans thing.
Yeah, or just like he was the only person to salute Josh Brolin too. So I get that.
And that ends up being the payoff when he salutes the communist or salutes the Russian, and the Russian silhouette is the one who's saluting him.
Right. Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. There's a little bit more of callback for that too. So yeah, I mean, great movie, great soundtrack. I think the music was done nicely too. The cinematography was really nice. Character development was good. I felt like I really cared about all of the characters, even though you don't get a lot of time with them. And yeah, I think it's funny. It's a funny movie. So for me, this is a 9. A solid 9 for sure. I hold back from the perfect 10, but it could get there. In retrospect, if I looked back at this movie, I might give it a 10.
Very good.
Yeah. For now, it's a 9.
Nice. I'll go next. For me, I agree with everything you just said, Nick. I also want to add there were a lot of great one-liners. Dialogue was entertaining but not overpowering. I too liked the music. Wasn't really looking to figure out who did it, but I noticed that it wasn't again, a lot of times in movies I noticed the music is a character of its own. The music in this movie didn't really have a character base, but it played the role of ironically in this movie they talk about the different types of extras. So it would have been what did they call it?
Principal
extra.
Yeah,
it would have been the music would have been a principled extra. So not every single time that you would expect there to be a musical break was there one, but when the background music and things would play in, you knew something was going to change or something was going to get a little more intriguing. So those things for me definitely jumped out. Not really knowing about who the Coen brothers typically put in their movies. So a lot of the small role type of pop-ups were kind of impressive for me. So I'll just come from that angle, just adding to what you said. And before Mike says it, adding to what Mike says, because if it's one thing I can say, I noticed a lot of different things about this movie technically, but I don't know how to verbalize them and or which of them are impressive and normal, and I just don't catch them as often. So I want to say also thank you for pointing those things out, because I'm like, wait, yeah, okay, I saw that. I didn't know how to articulate that, but I know exactly what you mean. So within all of that, those are my final thoughts. and remarks. So as far as a rating, it's weird. This is one of those movies as far as rating, I wasn't really sure how to rate it. I almost want to give it a 10, but don't want to give it a 10. Like I still want to give it like an 8.5, 8.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of leaves me in a limbo wondering what is it that makes me reserve the 10 still. But I can't find anything wrong with this movie, and it's not an animation. It's not a biography. It hits all of the points that allow it to surpass 8.
Right.
So within that, I'm gonna ride with Nick and leave it at 9, simply because I want to leave some room for error. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that I don't think it's as good as what was that, Big Fish or
Eternal Sunshine.
Eternal Sunshine of Spotless. Not as good as them, but definitely up there.
It might just be the emotional impact. Then.
Real Big Fish, Superman. Are we talking about music? What are we talking about?
No, Tim Burton.
I know.
So it might be emotional impact for you. Perhaps. Yeah, because those movies made me cry. Yeah, there was no you're right. You're right. And even in this movie, like I said, I have some really burst out loud, have to pause, walk out the room, take a breather, grab some water type of laughs. Mm-hmm. Ironically, I guess I was kind of missing that tearjerker grab me by my vocal cords type of a moment.
Yeah, you weren't sad when Channing Tatum became a true communist.
I know that was a tragedy. I think he even put on some eyeliner too.
Yeah,
no, I think he had that on already.
And then like visually, like he's like standing there like he's fucking George Washington or some shit
on the Delaware.
Okay, that was good, but no, I did not cry.
Or
didn't feel any emotion. No.
Awesome.
Right,
we didn't lose one when Channing Tatum left the side.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever said we lost one when Channing Tatum. I'm sorry. Sorry, Channing Tatum. I didn't mean that at all. You're a great actor. So what do I think about this movie? What can I say?
Very well done.
I really love this film. From top to bottom. And Keelan, if you don't know how to verbalize a certain like technical thing in a film, it's just because you haven't learned the language. It's just like in hip hop, like
what's that?
You don't know, yeah. A hip hop to the
Never mind. I know what it is.
Stop. You know what it is now?
I got you
ruined
back.
It all. I ruined everything. But it's like not knowing what a 16th is, right? Mm-hmm. It's just if you know language, you know language. If you don't, you don't. Like same thing with film. Right. But technically, this film is sound. Music-wise, it's great. All the musical numbers are awesome. The sort of like film notions of making musicals becomes a little bit absurd when you watch this movie because you realize like the whole Channing Tatum song that happens within that bar, they do it again. And
it's
they
a
do
one
it
take.
Again. Yeah. It's a one take. And it's like, what are you doing?
That's madness.
That bartender is going to have to pull those sheets from under those dancers without killing them.
Right.
I think it was all because the director wanted to see it one more time.
Yeah, probably. All that stuff is sound. All that stuff is great. The story is a little fun if it is subtle. So like I didn't realize the whole story took place in 27 hours. Even at the end when he was like, it's been 27 hours. I only realized that after you said it. And that's my fault as a film viewer not paying close enough attention. But it could also be sleep depth for me personally, which is it's natural for me. But I can't. When I dig, I can't find anything negative with this movie. It is one of those perfect films. Like even the whole title, right? Like Hell Caesar. This particular movie within the production studio doesn't even come up that many times.
Mm-mm.
It's rare.
Yeah.
Which is the whole like.
It's really about the final scene. That's the only thing we see from it, really.
Yeah, it sucks it all up, which may be the whole message about Hollywood, right? Like you set up this big thing, but it's never actually about the big things, about all these other
all the
things.
hustle and bustle.
Yeah. And that stuff is cool. And I'm sure if you've worked in Hollywood, I'm sure if you're within that industry, you'll pick up tons of inside jokes that we may not hear because we're just a bunch of idiots on microphones. But it's a 10 out of 10 for me, man. Nice. I absolutely adored this film. I would, if I had a double feature night with a bunch of friends, I would pair this with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it would work perfectly with the intermission of go to the bar, go to the bathroom, go to the lobby, go get your snacks, whatever. Your snacks. Snacks. But I absolutely love this film. Awesome. And I'm a film nerd too, so that helps it.
Praise. Yeah. Good shit, man. Well, that brings us to a 9.3 out of 10.
Very nice.
Which is damn good. That
Very good.
Definitely puts it in the top 4 of all of the movies that we've seen. So yeah, nice. This one was really nice.
Really good. Yeah.
My review tagline would be 10 out of 10. Would see again.
Would hail again.
Hey,
would contemplate the downfalls of capitalism again.
Those fucking
or the rise of the future.
Yeah, those commies are so good. It's so hilarious how like the Cohen Brothers just kind of like dance all over this sophist knowledge shit. Not to get like really
too deep into it.
Niche. Yeah. So like
it's such an indictment on them.
So like so imagine if I came, you see this with a lot of self-help shit, but like I came to you, Keelan, and I was like, so Keelan, I heard you like to make music. If you pay $200, I can show you to make music that will make you $1 million.
Oh, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's a sophist, where back in ancient Greece they would go, pay me money, I will give you ideas and knowledge so that you make $1 billion. And
otherwise known as a grifter.
Yeah, here's the fucked up thing though. You trace education with it, you end up finding that modern day universities fall victim to this idea.
Oh yeah, that's exactly
that you pay this money and I will give you a job that will make you happy for the rest of your life. Yeah.
And if you want to find out how true that is, just go and ask the 50 people that you know that went to the universities that don't have damn jobs.
Yeah. Right.
Or not ones that were in the field that they studied, which is even more tragic.
It's never going to be in their field, but I'm talking about the ones who just didn't get a job.
Right.
Yeah. But the Coen Brothers dancing on the sophist knowledge of the communists is fucking.
It's so good.
So entertaining. It's so good to see.
It's damning too, because it's just it's done so subtly and delicately that you don't know why they're even in the movie, but it's just to be shit on.
They're like, these were the struggles of the communists. They were here in their Malibu house, piecing together their puzzle,
narrating it,
apps, and fucking living the life of the worker, of the working class proletariat. They really know.
To be were they all single middle-aged men?
Pretty much.
Yeah, look like it.
Like, where's all y'all family, son? I don't think all y'all now have to be here, I'm sure.
Right.
All piggybacking off of one German and pissed off that they didn't agree to some back-end deal on their writing contract.
Right.
That's it.
Yep. It's super silly.
We came up with the IP.
That's right. Yeah. And we need to own the means of production. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up here, folks. And so, yeah, you guys good with that? Good to wrap it up?
I'll Caesar.
All right, let's do it. I'm gonna throw this music on for a second, if it'll go, because my internet. There we go. Thank you guys so much for listening. We very much appreciate you. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know I certainly did. Please feel free to leave us a comment in the comment section if you saw this movie, if you liked it, what your thoughts are. We would love to hear from you. Please also consider giving us a subscription to our YouTube page. That would be greatly appreciated. We're trying to build that base out and give you guys great content every Wednesday and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. We also have podcasts that we do separately if you want to check those out. Me and Mike have a podcast. It's called Exofathom. It's on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Please go check that out. Exofathom at YouTube and Facebook, and we have Rumble and Odyssey and Verbal, so you can check us out there. No. We all take turns, and we're all the host of that podcast. So please be sure to check us out. Exofathom Monday night at 8 p.m.
Guest host.
No. He's being modest. And Keelan's got a podcast. It's called If Numbers Could Talk. You want to make sure that you go check him out on Facebook and on YouTube. If Numbers Could Talk. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to his channel so that he knows that you appreciate him. He talks about numbers. He talks about stats and figures, whether it's in entertainment and sports and comic books and cars, anything you can think of. He's trying to put together lists for you and break down the numbers and see what they say to him. So check him out. Intel. Yeah, good intel. There you go. So check him out at If Numbers Could Talk, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. on Facebook and on YouTube. We also got a buddy here. He's not in right now, but Dijon the Mustard, he's always in our hearts, and he'll be returning eventually. But he's got a Twitch channel called Strawberries and Coffee, where he streams games, and you can go check him out, Strawberries and Coffee, on Twitch and also on YouTube. He puts his streams up there as well. So be sure to check him out. Give him some love. Let him know that Screen Time Continuum misses him, and maybe guilt him into coming back at some point. We'll very much we appreciate you for taking the time with us tonight, and we hope that you have a wonderful evening or whenever you are listening to this. Thank you for taking this trip through the Screen Time Continuum with us. For Screen Time Continuum, I am Nick.
I am Keelan.
And I'm Headphones.
Good night. Are we going to say something at the end?
Probably not.